Hello there, you're watching TRT World, and the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is speaking about Turkey's military operation Peace Spring, which is now into a fifth day as Turkey's military and Turkish-backed forces try to clear the YPG terror group from an area 32 kilometers deep into Syrian territory. Let's have a listen.
But we are also seizing some weapons, some of the weapons that the United States is sending them. Right now, we cleared Resul Ayn town center from the terrorists, And in Tel Abyad, 17 villages have been controlled by Turkish armed forces. Syrian National Army is also fighting with terrorists against terrorists in Manbij as well. As you know, the Syrian National Army was FSA before, but then they renamed themselves and now they are Syrian National Army, SNA.
Bunu askerlerimizi ve Suriye Milli Ordusu saflarında savaşan kardeşlerimizi en az riske atarak yapmak istiyoruz.
Our only purpose is not only controlling the area. We also do not want to risk our soldiers and Turkish-backed Syrian National Army. The important thing here is not risking our soldiers and being successful in this operation. These terrorists who cannot fight against our soldiers are attacking our civilian citizens with rockets from Syria into our borders. So far, there have been 652 mortar and rocket attacks into our borders from Syria by YPG and PKK terrorists. Half of these mortar and rocket shells hit Nusaybin. Terrorists are especially hitting the civilian areas. And they are hitting from civilian areas in Syria, especially from like hospitals and other civilian places. They are also attacking from inside of churches and mosques. Their purpose is making Turkey attack them back, and if Turkey hits a church or a mosque, then they are going to do a dirty propaganda, as if Turkey is attacking civilian places. But we don't want to let them do this. We don't want to give them this opportunity. They are trying to do a dirty propaganda with the bloods of civilians in Syria. We have enough experience and enough moral values to fight against terrorists without harming civilians. 18 of our citizens martyred by the attacks of YPG. And there was a baby, nine months old. A Syrian refugee was living in Turkey, and he was killed by the terrorists during their mortar attacks, mortar shells to Turkey. I called his family and I wished condolences to his family. During this operation, 2 of our soldiers were martyred. And 22 soldiers were injured. But instead, the number of neutralized terrorists have been 490 so far. 440 of them were killed, 26 of them were injured
24 tane teslim
and
alınan
24 of them
şu andaki
were
son
seized
nihai
by
tablo
our
içeri girerken
forces. They were captured
ve yine
alive.
şu ana kadar kontrol altına alınan alan büyüklüğü
And so
109
far,
kilometre karedir.
we have been controlling
Şehitlerimize Allah'tan
109
rahmet,
kilometers of area.
yaralılarımıza Rabbimden acil şifalar diliyorum.
I wish a
Sosyal
fast
medyada
recovery for
Barış
the
Pınarı
injured
Harekatı
soldiers.
konusunda ülkemiz aleyhine faaliyet yürüten 129 kişi gözaltına alınmış.
People who are
589
doing a
kişiye de
propaganda
idari
against
işlem
our
yapılmış.
army and against our country in social media are also being arrested. 109 people are arrested.
3 başlıkta toplandığını görüyoruz. Birinci konu, bu operasyonun ardından Suriye'de bulunan DAEŞ'lıların
Now people are asking what's going to happen to foreign Daesh fighters in Syria after this operation. And the second question is,
tüm Kürtleri mi hedef aldı?
what is this operation aiming? What's this operation targeting? The Kurds
Türkiye'nin
or the
Suriye'de
terrorists?
kontrolü altına aldığı bölgelerle ilgili
And the third
gelecekteki
question is
hesaplarıdır. Kısaca
the
da
calculations
olsa,
and the
her
questions
hususla
about the
ilgili
areas that
görüşlerimi
Turkey will
ifade
control
etmek
after
istiyorum.
this operation. So I want to talk about, I want to answer these questions.
DAEŞ üzerinden ülkemizi itham etmeye kalkan ülkeler ve çevreler
So the
başta
countries
olmak
who
üzere
are trying to
bu
accuse our
alçak
country,
örgüte karşı gerçek anlamda
accuse our country
mücadele
with
vermiş
motivation of
tek devlet.
Daesh, I want to tell them that Turkey is the only country who fought
Ankara'da
against Daesh on
yaptığımız
the
il
ground.
başkanları toplantımızda DAEŞ'la mücadelemizle ilgili rakamları tüm detaylarıyla kamuoyuyla paylaşmıştık.
Last week we shared the numbers
Halen
of
Suriye'de bulunan
the
DAEŞ'liler
results of our
konusunda
fights
her
against,
türlü
against Daesh.
sorumluluğu
Last week we
üstlenmeye
shared
hazır
this
olduğumuzu
information and the
altını
numbers
çizerek
in Ankara.
ifade ettik,
But
ifade
still,
ediyoruz.
we are saying that
Buna
we are
rağmen
ready to fight against
ülkemizi
Daesh and we
hala
are ready
DAEŞ
to take
konusunda
responsibility
itham etmeye
against
devam edenler
Daesh fighters which are
asla
arrested in
iyi
Ankara,
niyetle
in
hareket
Syria right
etmiyor.
now.
Harekatımızın Suriye halkını özellikle de
Our
oradaki
they're saying that they're accusing us that
teröristleri
our
hedef
operation
aldığı açıkça
is
ortada.
against Kurds, but no, that's not
Kendi
true. Our
güvenlik
operation against
güçlerimizin
only the
ve
terrorists.
vatandaşlarımızın hayatlarını riske atma pahasına
We are
sivillerin
doing
zarar
this
görmemesi
operation
için sergilediğimiz
and we are
hassasiyet
even risking
bunun en
our
büyük
soldiers and our
ispatı.
citizens' life, but we are not
Türkiye'nin
trying to
asker gücü, şayet
target any,
insani
any
duyarlılığımız
civilians in
olmasa,
Syria. So that's a
terör
good proof that
örgütünün
although
tüm
we are risking
operasyon
ourselves,
sahasında
we don't want to
birkaç gün içinde
harm any civilians in
yerle
Syria.
yeksan etmeye yeterlidir.
If
Ama
we
biz
were not,
adeta
if we
bir
wouldn't
kuyumcu
be careful about
hassasiyetiyle çalışıyor,
civilians in
tek bir
Syria,
masumun
we would
burnunun bile
be able
kanamaması
to
için
kill
gayret
every
gösteriyor.
single terrorists in
Hele
Syria, in northeast Syria. But
operasyonumuzun
because we are
Kürtleri
just
hedef
trying to
alması gibi bir durum
not
asla
harm
söz
civilians,
konusu
this
değil.
operation is taking longer
Tam
time than
tersine,
it would normally
bu
be.
operasyonda en büyük desteği Suriye Kürtlerinden alıyoruz.
We are not targeting
Gerek
Syrian
önde
Kurds,
gelen Kürt sivil toplum
and actually we
temsilcilerinin
are
yaptıkları açıklamalar,
receiving the
gerekse
biggest support from the
askerlerimizin
Syrian
girdiği
Kurds in
yerlerde
Syria
gördükleri
because
riski
they are tired of
bu durumun
YPG and PKK
ispatı.
terror group.
Altını çizerek tekrarlamam gerekirse,
I want to underline that
Kürtlere değil, PKK
we are not fighting against Kurds. We are not targeting Kurdish civilians.
bunlara karşı
But
operasyon
we are doing this operation against
Kısacası
YPG,
biz
PKK, and PYD, whatever their
Suriye'nin
name is.
kuzeyinde bir terör devletinin kurulmasına müsaade etmiyoruz.
We will
müsaade
not let
etmeyeceğiz.
a terror state
Tabii bunun
established in
altındaki
northeast
gizliliği
Syria.
de sizler de inanıyorum ki çok çok iyi biliyorsunuz bu terör devletinden ne kastedilir. Son olarak
And finally,
Suriye'deki varlığımızın tamamen
regarding our presence
kendi
in Syria,
sınırlarımızın güvenliği
I think we need to focus on the fact that this operation is carried out only for the security of our country and to make sure that Syrians that we host can go back to their homes. Territorial integrity of Syria, once it is achieved, Turkey will be the most content country because Syria is a country that is in geographic vicinity of Turkey, and as Turkey we have paid the highest price for the human suffering that took place in Syria. We do not have any motives to go after anyone's territory, but we also have the right to protect our own territory. Dear friends, members of the press, after the Spring of Peace was initiated both in Turkey and on the international arena, everyone exhibited their stance, and we have had the opportunity to see everyone who they are. This legitimate operation by Turkey was described by an invasion by some people with no common sense, and sadly some countries have also jumped on this bandwagon. We have been saying this since months. Right after our operation, our country has been threatened with weapons embargoes and economic sanctions. And these people should know that Turkey will never go back on this journey with such threats. Above all else, this issue has a very important significance both for our country and for our nation. Yesterday at the German parliament, the Minister of Foreign Affairs made a speech, and he said that they would stop selling of weapons to Turkey. Yet another country also said that they would stop selling of weapons to Turkey. And I just talked to Chancellor Merkel, and I said to her, in your government, you have these people, the Minister of Foreign Affairs used these words, I said to her. How can you explain these words? And I asked her to explain something to me. Are we NATO allies or not? That's what I asked Chancellor Merkel. Or is the terrorist organization now a NATO member? And are we not aware of that? I asked. This is such an odd stance that cannot be explained. Are you with us or are you with the terrorist organization? That's the question that begs to be answered. On the one hand, we talk about the fact that counterterrorism is important all across the globe, and on the other hand, you come to us and you say that you are siding with this terrorist organization. The U.S. has sent 30,000 truckloads of weaponry, ammunition via Iraq. They sent these to the terrorist organization. And right now, with these weapons, the terrorist organization is fighting us. How are we going to make sense of Article 5? How are we going to make sense of the Adana Agreement? Right now in Syria. Why are we in Syria right now? Because the regime cannot stand against terrorism, and because of that we are there. As per the Adana Agreement, we have entered Syria, and that's the only reason why we have entered Syria. We don't have any other luxury to sit back and wait until these provocations take place. We are sick and tired of the provocations and the attacks of this terrorist organization, and we had to do this. Of course, people who think that Turkey will be upset by these threats, will go back because of these threats, are very much wrong. This topic is very important for our nation, for our country, and I'm very sad to see that some people cannot understand this. This topic is a matter of survival for Turkey, for Turkey's perpetuity. For 35 years now, we have been beset by the threat of terrorism. We lost thousands of law enforcement officers, thousands of citizens and soldiers because of these terrorist attacks. The cost of terrorism for Turkey stands at hundreds of billions of US dollars. In other words, for 30 years, Turkey has suffered because of terrorism and related problems. If we had added that to our national income, I think we would be twice as better or 3 times as better compared to where we are today. Members of the terrorist organization very openly expressed their views all across the world. As soon as the operation started, they initiated attacks towards Turkey, and that has shown their true colors. Rather than listening to the legitimate reasons of Turkey, those people who do not wish to listen to the legitimate excuses of Turkey listen to the pretexts used by the terrorist organization. On the one hand, we will continue to do what is right, and on the other, we will continue to explain why we do what we do, and none of these will stand in the face of our determination. In such an environment, thanks to you, we cherish this opportunity to inform our nation and the global public as well. And also, it is important to get together with the representatives of embassies and other international organizations. Next week, we are going to have a meeting in Istanbul. Also, as you know, we initiated projects in order to meet our military needs in Turkey by Turkish companies. This Hisar project, which is being run under the auspices of the Ministry of Defense, is focusing on national projects that will focus on manufacturing in Turkey. And yesterday, Hisar, a low-altitude missile system, was able to achieve 100% target realization. This is a great technical feat, and hopefully, well, Hisar was created by our engineers, by our own employees, by our own institutions, namely our own nation. This Hisar project is going to help us in terms of military bases, ports, and protect them against air attacks. We have fixed and rotating against rotating planes, and also missiles and drones. This project has the opportunity and the capability to protect our nation. Thanks to the successful tests that were carried out yesterday, we are going to initiate the serial production within Hisar. This low-altitude missile defense system by the Turkish Armed Forces will hopefully be operationalized come next year. This accomplishment will hopefully be translated into the long missile, long-range missile system. Now, we are going to focus on Patriot and S-400-like systems in the future, having accomplished these things. If they have Patriots, then we will have the Siper project, which will hopefully be initialized in the future. We will make make do with what we have. We will make ends meet within Turkey. With these sentiments, I also would like to touch upon a couple of things, if I may, and here's what I'd like to say. Some countries are sort of rather hasty in jumping to conclusions between us and between the terrorist organization. They are willing and ready to act as intermediaries. I don't know what sort of prime ministers or statespeople these people are. It again begs explanation. Since when, as a representative of a state, how can you recommend sitting down on the same table with terrorists? Can you negotiate with terrorists? This is one thing that they need to understand. We need to explain these concepts to them, I believe. I mean, we tell them that Turkey is now facing a terrorist organization. If you are you going to bring together a terrorist organization and Turkey around the same table? Is that ever possible? Why don't you review this stance, we say. And then they say, nine. How do you mean 9? I've said this before, and sadly these are the things that we are exposed to. We are confident of the steps that we are taking, and we did not prepare for this in just a matter of weeks or months. It took us months and months on end to prepare ourselves for this operation. Turkish armed forces on the one side, politicians on the other have been preparing for this. Likewise, the intelligence has been working on this in depth for quite some time, and that's why we are taking such decisive steps right now. As you know, in Turkey, we have gone into the caves of these terrorists, but they expand all the way down to the south, to the north of Syria, and the regime in Syria, if they had toppled these down, then it would have been easier for us. But sadly, the regime cannot do that. The regime falls short of doing that. The same thing applies to Iraq as well. Let me say that also. The situation in Iraq is also quite awful. And we are also in talks with Iraq, and they say different things to us. And sadly, behind our backs, they make different announcements. And right now, within a couple of days, take a look at what they have said. I do not want to name names, but it hurts me personally. I mean, when they're in dire straits, we always run to their aid. We always side with them. And we never ever stand in their way, but when it comes to them, they side with terrorists, or they sympathize with terrorists, saying that they're also Kurds. I don't care whether someone is a Kurd or not. I don't care about that in the least. It's important to be a human being first. These people are terrorists, and our views vis-a-vis terrorists and people, human beings, are different. We're not racists, because these people, I believe, are racist in the truest sense of the word. I don't care about what else they are, terrorists, this and that. I don't care about that. Just remember who these people have killed. Remember who fled their own countries and came to Turkey. 4 million refugees are in Turkey right now, 400,000 of which are Kurdish, 3,600,000 of which are Arabs. Ethnically, and we take care of all these people. We take care of the Arabs, we take care of the Kurds, and we also have Turkmens, albeit in small numbers. We also take care of them. We don't discriminate against these ethnicities. And also there's the Yazidis, Chaldeans, Christians. They also fled Syria to seek refuge in Turkey. We also take care of them. All of these sadly are not seen by the US, by Europe. We explain these things to them, but unfortunately, we have this saying, talk is futile. Sadly, this is the picture that we are confronted with, and within this framework, we're never going to overlook religious minorities. We will always treat them with utmost respect, just like we've done so far. And also, there's all sorts of announcements. The Armenian Patriarchate, the Syriac Church, and the Syriac Aramean Church also made announcements to support our endeavors within the framework of Spring of Peace. They are supporting the operation, recognizing the atrocities committed by PYD and YPG. They suffered tremendously because of these organizations in Syria, and they fled. Some of these people fled Syria. Some people went to Europe also. And I said this to Mr. Trump as well, and he said, President Trump said that he didn't know any of these things. Again, within this picture, here we are right now. Of course, we will never sit down and negotiate with terrorists. That would be self-denial. We would never succumb to that. We would never resort to that. And this would be in contravention with the political, with our political ethics. It wouldn't befit our character, our traditions, and our historical stance. And our stance vis-a-vis terrorists is clear. 30 kilometers of depth from the west to the east, that entire basin. Until they leave this basin, we will continue this operation. And I've said this to the UK Prime Minister yesterday, and today I talked to Chancellor Merkel, and I reiterated the same messages. Should we now take a look at the map?
Evet, harita üzerindeki takvimi de biz Hulusi Paşam'a bırakalım. Şöyle hem asker hem de savunma bakanımız.
So let us make sure that our Minister of Defense walks you through the map. Maybe we should do that on the screen.
İsterseniz şunu da verebiliriz.
You're watching TRT World. We've been hearing President Recep Tayyip Erdogan speaking about Turkey's military operation in northeastern Syria. Operation Peace Spring is now into a fifth day. He's just invited Hulusi Akar, his defense minister, to show the media there a map, presumably, of the area where Turkey's military is involved. The important number is 32 to 35. Those are the number of kilometers that this safe zone that Turkey's military is trying to establish in that part of Syria, the distance that it will stretch from Turkey's border into Syrian territory. The aim has always been the same, to create a zone which will eventually be safe enough to repatriate 1, 2, maybe even more million Syrian refugees out of the 3.6 millions who are living in this country, having escaped the war in their homeland. The YPG terror group is the main target, but also you can see the word Daesh on the screen there for you, because that's one of the big concerns of Western countries, the thousands of Daesh prisoners that the YPG terror group has currently got in prison. Many Western countries wondering whether Turkey's military operation might make that a rather delicate situation. But Turkey's president has repeated what his foreign ministry has said in a statement a few hours ago, that Turkey's military will take full responsibility for all Daesh terrorists who are taken prisoner in Syrian territory. The aim eventually, Turkey would like, is for at least the foreign fighters who have been working with the Daesh terror group to be repatriated to their countries of origin.